Hi, friends, and welcome to Season 3 of the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, often known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I'm an old dog who's always trying to learn new tricks. That's why at each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson, program, or activity they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear about what you and your friends are doing in your school library. Email me at drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com to tell me about what you're doing, offer feedback about the SLLN podcast, or to request a podcast sticker. As Amy Herman likes to say, being a guest on a podcast is a great way to show your admins you are engaged in meaningful professional development and leadership in the profession. So drop me a line and let's chat. That being said, the opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. I just like to geek out about school libraries. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, we are back and I am here with my friend Rachel. She is going to share, I saw this on Bluesky. She had shared this out that she was had this idea, this lesson that she's done, this activity she's done, and it was awesome. And so fortunately, she was willing to come and share with us. So please help me welcome Rachel. Rachel, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you take a second, tell us who you are and where you are.
Hi, Steve. I am really glad to be here. My name is Rachel Grover, and I am a librarian in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, the very blue part of Virginia. I am in a middle school that serves just grades 7 and 8. And I am in a very affluent area of Northern Virginia. A lot of our parents work in the tech sector. They work for places that they can't tell you where they work for, because that is just how secretive we are. I am very fortunate to be in an area that my school boundaries serve a very affluent area, so that affords some protection as well.
That's awesome. I just had something click in my brain, and I apologize because sometimes a little slow, but Rachel, we have met before at AASL.
We met at AASL. I have presented at the district, the state, and the national level. I presented with my wife, believe it or not, at AASL, but we presented on how to use infographics and also how to support student belonging in the library. Yes. And I'm hoping I'll see you this year because we got accepted to present twice again this year too.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's outstanding. Yes. Thank you for clarifying because I knew I had these little pieces that sort of started to click together like Legos in my brain, but I knew I hadn't put them quite right. So
AASL is a beast. You meet so many people. I'm always exhausted afterwards, but it is the most fulfilling thing I do professionally.
Yes. Being in a place with so many people who are on the same page just is so wonderful. It really is. So speaking of past and history and where we're at and how we got here, how did you end up in school librarianship? Like, what was your journey to the library?
Well, I started teaching in 2007, right after undergrad. And I grew up in Boston, north of Boston. They are a little bit different. My Massachusetts listeners, every school district is by town there. And in 2007, they weren't exactly hiring fresh teachers. Just the population was decreasing. It wasn't a great place. But believe it or not, when I was in 8th grade, our 8th grade took a trip to Washington, D.C. for a couple of days. And why adults in the building would sign up for this annual trip, I will never understand. Because it was 4 days. It was a Friday through Monday thing. We took charter buses. It was a 10-hour thing. And I had never been outside of New England other than Florida where my grandparents had lived. And I came to DC and my mind just blew. So I realized in 8th grade, I wanted to live near DC, which had never happened before. So anyway, one of the places that I looked for like best school districts was Northern Virginia in Prince William County. And so I looked and Prince William County had like 150 job openings. And so I started as a 5th grade teacher at 21. And I spent 2 years as a 5th grade teacher and then wanted something a little bit bigger. So I went to 7th grade English and taught 7th grade English for 4 years. And then I was voluntold to move to 8th grade English my last year. And I wasn't happy about it at the beginning because my principal knew it was my last year. She knew I was in library school and I was looping up with kids. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to start at the beginning, Steve, on my
Ah,
last year teaching. But it
ah.
really worked out because when I interviewed for this library job, I could talk about how I taught seventh and eighth grade. So it did good things for me. But at the time, man, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
An English teacher, I was also team leader. So I was really good at listening to my science and my social studies and my math colleagues about what they were teaching our same kids. And so as an English teacher, I was looping in things that they were learning in science. Maybe I used a nonfiction reading about biomes. So they were hitting biomes again and our nonfiction skills at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted something bigger. I wanted a bigger impact. So I went from a class of 25 when I taught fifth grade to now 120 kids for middle school, right? And I was like, I need something bigger. Like, I want a bigger impact. So at the time, I went to the teacher who did gifted and talented, and I went to my librarian and I said, I need something else. State your case. And the gifted and talented teacher said, you will hate it because all I do is paperwork. And the librarian said, I cannot believe you're suggesting this because you would be perfect for this job.
Okay.
So she knew, I did not. And then I started my library program with Old Dominion University. It was completely online. I did it in 2 years. So my whole master's, Steve, I did it on Saturday mornings. I did the whole week's. I know you know this. I did the whole week's worth of assignments on Saturday morning. I'd get up at 6 a.m. and I was done by noon because
Mm-hmm.
I had an hour commute and I was
Oof.
teaching all day. And then I had an hour coming home. I didn't have time to do classwork during the week. So
Yeah.
that's what my weekends were, but I was done in 2 years. But I knew my very first day being a librarian when all of my courses were kind of tied in together in this one day that I was like, oh, a little bit of collection, a little bit of programming, a little bit of collaboration, that I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yep. Yep.
Still get
100%.
teaching, but I still get to, plan how many dinosaurs are in the jar.
100%. Yeah. Man, it's funny. I feel like I love asking people how they became school librarians and how they got into the library. And so many of the stories are sort of similar in that, like, a lot of people didn't really plan necessarily on being a school librarian and sort of almost fell into it. And once they found it, it was the perfect place to be.
Yes.
And I'm just now, I don't know why it's just now occurring to me, but I'm just now realizing that part of that is selection bias, because the people I get to talk to are the people who are doing awesome stuff. And so they're the ones who are looking for ways to make those impacts on students and find those things that are going to really make the school a better place. And
that's what I wanted. I wanted to make a bigger impact. And here I have an impact on every content area. I work with every content area. I always tell kids during orientation, I always say, you never know where I'm going to show up because we don't have a fixed schedule. So sometimes I'm teaching how to license your own artwork in art class. And sometimes
ooh,
I'm talking about research in civics class, or I'm talking about how to do lateral reading in science. So it's like, you never know where I'm going to show up. And I
and
love seeing the mix of kids, but then also showing kids like, I get more than one standards. I am on top of everybody's curriculum here.
yes, exactly. The school library skills and the school library resources are not a separate standalone thing. They apply to everybody. They apply to every class. I love that you do that. I'd never thought about students licensing their art, but that's a great way. That's a great conversation to have, but also a great lesson.
Yeah, this is not the lesson we were going to talk about, but we talk about copyright. We talk about public domain. We talk about Creative Commons and how it's different. We talk about how AI has influenced the art area and can you license AI? And it is an incredible lesson that kids still talk to me about. They'll come back the next year and be like, I'm still thinking about that lesson.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I would like to get you on the schedule after we have done this episode so that we can discuss this, because this sounds just absolutely fascinating and so worthwhile for people to know about.
It's a great lesson. I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's loop back to where we actually were going to start today.
Good idea.
So I'm kind of curious, before we get into the lesson itself, like, where did the idea for this come from? What was sort of the origin?
So it came out of my desire to work with literally everybody. So when I was hired in Virginia, we have it in the standards of quality that if you have more than 1,000 students, you get 2 certified librarians.
Ooh,
it is in the standards of quality.
love
So
that.
Right. And so right now we're at 900. So it's just me. But when I was originally hired, we had 1,300 students and I was hired as the second librarian. The librarian who hired me literally just did checkout, like didn't do anything else. I think he might have showed the databases to the English teachers, the English classes once. And that was kind of his whole when book fair. That was basically it.
Okay.
So I essentially built my whole program from the ground up and I've been
Hmm.
here 12 years now. So in my first year, my first 2 years, I said, it is my goal to make sure I hit every single content area. So, I worked a little bit with math. I worked with world language. I worked with all these people and I was looking at our master calendar and kind of doing the checkoffs of who I had worked with. And then I realized that I had done very little for our beginning English speakers. And we have one class that is beginning English, that English is not their first language and they are very much struggling to learn English. So they have a dedicated class that teaches them prepositions and colors and syntax and all the things. And I thought to myself, I have not worked with them before.
They're I don't want to say they're a difficult population, but I think in my mind, and I think in the minds of many school librarians, when you look at the ELL population, it can be a little bit, maybe almost intimidating, because what can you offer them? You're so used to working in your native language with all these amazing skills, but not necessarily having a lot of opportunities to branch out from there. So I love that you are very specifically thinking, this is not a group that I'm servicing well. What do I do? Because that's always something in the back of my head, like, who am I not helping and what can I do to help them? So I
That's
love that.
exactly right. So it comes back to one of the sessions that I did with my wife at AASL about belonging. And the idea is that the library is a place in your school, but it's also an experience, right? And this is a gigantic place in the school that everybody should feel some kind of connection to. And it shouldn't matter whether they're a reader or not, whether they're an English speaker or not. And, when you service civics classes, you also need to service English classes. The multi-language learners need to be serviced as well. That is our duty
Absolutely.
as librarians.
Yeah. And even when we differentiate, obviously we're going to always try and differentiate for all of the students and all the ability levels. And sometimes I can see ELL being a very difficult level to differentiate for, especially if your materials might be limited and you don't feel like you've got the materials that are going to support those students, especially in a native language. But that doesn't mean that we can just walk away and say, oh, well, sorry, I don't have what you need. So I love this idea that you're sharing today, because I think it's such a great way for the library to be there. And based on it, we're going to go through it and you're going to explain, but based on what I've seen of it, it sounds like it's something that is pretty a fairly low lift and a fairly easy resource group to have for these students. So
that's exactly right. It is a lesson that I feel like any librarian can replicate.
Yeah. So I think it's time to dive right in here. So
let's go.
Yeah. So you are sharing with us how we can help conversational English skills with ELL students in the Makerspace, which is not a combination of words that I would have thought went together, but I love this. So where does this sort of start out?
So it started with my need to work with the beginning English teacher. And starting in my third year, I've been here a long time. Sometimes, the years kind of blend together.
Absolutely.
Very early in my career, I had a makerspace. And believe it or not, do you know Ida Mae Craddock?
Yes.
She is great and she writes for SLJ and all kinds of awesome things she presents. We went to ODU together and she did her master's thesis on makerspaces. And this was in 2014, Steve. And so she convinced me that I needed to start a makerspace. Well, I ended up getting a grant from the PTA and some donations from parents. And we started this very rudimentary makerspace. And, from the beginning, I knew that everybody wanted to use this. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I thought, at the time I said, I don't have many Spanish books on my shelves. I don't have, very much for these multi-language learners, but I have like Legos and I have coloring. And I know that kids, no matter where they're from, like Legos and coloring.
Absolutely.
So, I really, my heart goes out to our students who don't have English as their first language and they are very beginning those English skills because they have to listen to English all day. I was just in Puerto Rico, Steve, and my Spanish is not up to snuff for Puerto Rico. And I was finally like, can someone speak English? And they had to find the one person who could translate. And I felt like I had such an EL experience when I was there because I was like, oh, thank God, someone who speaks my language. And so the beginning English class not only teaches them like syntax and things, but it also gives them a chance to relax and speak in their own language for a little bit. So I wanted to honor that part. And so I worked with the beginning English teacher at the time. And I said, you know, if they have worked hard all month or all week or whatever it is, let's give them some free time in the Makerspace. And she said, that's great. So we initially used it as an incentive. They could come and do Jenga and they could color and whatever. But you know what I learned, Steve? I learned that some students from other countries didn't know how to connect Legos.
What?
They had no idea. They were trying to attach them from like the bases and they had no idea how to build. They had never seen Legos before, Steve.
Wow.
And it was such a cultural connection that it was giving them, you know, new skills, but it wasn't something that could necessarily be learned in the classroom. And so at our first couple of times, they were allowed to speak their native language. Most of our learners at the time were speaking Spanish, and they had like maybe 20 minutes, the last 20 minutes of their class, that they could just speak in Spanish and do whatever it was. And the mind blowing that it was, because some of them had never played Jenga. So that's kind of how it started. And I said, well, let's make this kind of academic. So we let it progress a little bit. And at one particular time, I asked her, I said, hey, what are you guys doing right now? Which is always my question to every teacher. And she said, oh, well, we're working on prepositions. And I was like, oh, I remember prepositions because I was an English teacher. And she said, yeah, they just can't get the locations because, you know, it's the same in the other language, but, you know, English is tricky.
Yeah.
He said, I have a great idea. So it evolved into this activity. So I have everyday materials. So it's like paper towel tubes and toilet paper tubes and straws and Legos and I got some of those like mini dental cups donated, you know, the little bitty ones.
Yeah.
And we decided to let them like play, you know, like it's everyday items. It didn't cost me very much at all. And so we let them play and they were learning prepositions. So they had to write the sequence, you know, put the, you know, tube next to the whatever it was. And so they had to write down the directions. So not only were they thinking about like the organization of their design, but then they were writing it down. And so, you
love the idea of having that, even if you only stop there, which I know you didn't, but like just having that physical element to tie in with this language lesson. Because as a former English teacher also, and as a mediocre grammar student back in the day, you know, sitting there academically, reading it on the page and, you know, circling the preposition and, you know, talking through what the rules are, all of that mental work doesn't always translate into something that's easy to understand. And so this idea of saying, we're going to make this an actual physical activity, just automatically, I'm seeing how much easier that would be to create that understanding of like, even if it was simple as, you know, Bill goes to Mary, Mary takes the letter from Tom, like just giving them the physical interaction to go with those words and help them understand how that connects with the language. Love it.
Yeah. And the one thing, I did a lot of learning at the time about students who were learning English for the first time and a lot of their stumbling blocks and things. And something that is really reinforced in our district is when you're learning a language, even if it's a world language or if it's, you know, you're learning English here, there's 4 components, right? So there's speaking and listening, and there's reading and writing. And a lot of times we speak to students of other languages and expect them to respond. And what we forget is that they're doing 2 different skills. They are listening, and then they have to like translate their thought into English and then say it. And that is so difficult for so many kids. And so this particular lesson was really simple. All they had to do
Yeah.
down. So in this activity, it was just writing. Well, we discovered that sometimes the writing, particularly if it was a student who spoke Chinese, for example, who didn't use our same alphabet, it
Mhm.
was very difficult for them because
Yeah.
then they had to remember how the letters were formed and whatever.
Right.
So we evolved it a little bit. And then we decided, you know how we have those dumb testing dividers that are
Yeah.
like kind of like a science fair board? Well,
Hmm.
we decided that we were going to make it a partner activity. This was the next school year, not the same kids.
Okay.
And we decided to partner up kids. We had a lesson in the Makerspace because at the time I had a full Makerspace dedicated room. And we went over prepositions, we went over adjectives, we went over colors. And at the time, it was a heavily Spanish speaking class because, the English, the multilingual learners varied every year.
Yeah.
And so as we were doing them, we had kids in the class translating into Spanish so that the kids who had less language were able to kind of follow along.
I love that.
Yeah,
Anytime we can get peer instruction, I mean, that's great.
that's exactly right. And I coordinated with the EL teacher to get the same images that she had for learning prepositions. And it's a really cute image and it's a bird in like its little cage. And you can see where the bird is and it has the preposition underneath it.
Gotcha.
And so I got the digital version and I put it on my slide. So after we did colors and adjectives and whatever, I reminded them of like the prepositions.
Hmm.
So we did that, which was fine. So when we partnered them up, I introduced them to the different Makerspace materials because a lot of them didn't know the word tube or they didn't know the word cup. They
Sure.
didn't know the word straw. So we talked about pronunciation. We looked at it, we passed them around, we touched them and all the things. Because then what they did, Steve, was they got to build their little thing that we based on from the previous one, but we put the testing divider between them. And the
Okay.
other person had to build the same thing. So the person who built had to give the directions, the speaking. And the other person had the same supplies. So they had to listen to the direction and do the thing. So
Mm.
when they were done, they lifted up the divider to see how accurate they were. And some of them, and I did it even last year because it was such a success that our kids are so much better at speaking and listening than they are reading and writing.
Hmm.
So we decided that we were going to keep it with the testing divider and the giving directions because their reactions were great. It was like, I told you it was this side, or I blah, 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 or hey, look, it's perfect. So the celebration and the success was great. So we integrated what they were learning in class with just common Makerspace items that I had donated or, just had around. And you could do this lesson with literally anything. It could
Yeah.
be pens, it could be crayons, it could be, whatever it is. The point is that the Makerspace in our library is used by a lot of classes, but not beginning English. So
Right.
once again, it was an inclusion strategy to try to get them into a space that other students were using as well.
Right. And you're adding that element of play that I think is so easy to lose in school, but that we have learned through study after study after study is so important to building skills, building knowledge, building background information. So I love that they're getting to play in their own domain, play with someone else, but it's all in the service of we're building these skills up.
Yes. And then we included this year, we gave them a visual reference. So each student had a color printed set of what was on the slide. So they could refer back to it as they were giving the directions just in case. Because we found that the kids had forgotten what the words were when they didn't have that visual. But
Right.
you could watch kids using their finger to point to what it was, point to the preposition before they said it.
Right. Man, that's really awesome.
So cool. We do it every year.
I can see why. I mean, it's funny. I hooked up with my ELL teacher at the high school last year or the year before, and she was like, I don't know, what materials do we have for these kids? And I was like, I don't know. And so we started talking, and just having that conversation opened up a collaboration that went on for the full year as we kind of figured out, oh, they love graphic novels because the language is a less of a barrier and they can understand what's going on. And you're taking that to an even better level by adding this manipulable element to it that's going to give them hands-on experience that's going to help cement the language acquisition that's going on.
And not only that, but they're learning the everyday materials too.
Yeah,
They're learning the word cup and tube and straw that they didn't know before. So
right.
it's new language acquisition in addition to reinforcing the skills that they're learning in the classroom, but it's not as stale of a worksheet. It is actually applying it in real life.
Right. And like because they're materials that most of the time your makerspace materials are very common objects. So it is stuff they're going to encounter on a regular basis as opposed to donde está la biblioteca. Like, yes, we want them to know where the library is, but they're getting that firsthand experience. Man.
It made them want to come. So my makerspace is open during like our study hall time. And we deliberately gave them instruction on how to sign up to come. And they started to come, Steve. They started to come for Jenga. They started to come to play with the things because they knew about the room. They had experience. And that's what inclusion really is. That's what belonging really is.
Well, and you've also taken away a barrier that most people would think was practically impregnable for those students. Like, why would a student who doesn't speak English go to a library that's mostly stocked with English resources? But you're showing them this is not just a space for a specific language. It's a space for learning in all different aspects.
And I try really hard to tell students, especially during orientation, if you can tell where my brain is that I don't care if you're a reader or not. If you're a reader, I will celebrate you. If you are not a reader, I will help you. But if you're not interested in books, that's fine. I always tell the kids, I have no recollection of my middle school library, but we have games. We have contests every month. We have a makerspace. You can come and work on group projects. You don't have to be a reader to be in this space. And that is something that I want to make sure all my students know.
Yes. Oh, boy, I love it. I mean, this is such a wonderful way to lower that barrier to entry. And I can see this not just being an ELL lesson, like this could absolutely be translated into higher levels or more abstract directions. I mean, I used to teach a class on writing, and one of the things we did was direction writing. Mm-hmm. And I would have the kids write how to tie your shoe, but like having them do like a Lego model of some sort and have to write out the steps and have somebody else do it. I mean, what a great opportunity for everybody to get that hands-on, that experience.
And I think what I'm going to try to do this year, since we've been so successful, is I want to introduce it to our world language classes because they also we do 1 and 2 here. So we have French 1 and 2 and Spanish 1 and 2. Okay. And when they're learning prepositions, I think it would be a great activity. But I didn't know that until I had done this with this EL class.
Right. Oh, yeah. Taking the mirror image of it.
Yeah, because it's the same thing. It's just a different language.
Yeah. Boy, that's great.
All it does is all I have to do, the whole prep, is to make sure she's still using the same images, right? Because it's extending what she's doing in the classroom. And I have to pull things out of the bins in my makerspace.
Right. Huh. Boy.
Just common items.
Yeah. And I could see this even like, I'm thinking specifically Lego, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, but like, what a great opportunity to take that ELL learning from ELA learning to math learning and talk about numbers and addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, like just a way to sort of branch some subjects.
Yeah. There's so many things I've done with my EL classes, especially in my makerspace, because my other languages section has grown, but not with the population. My population is larger than my section is. So that is a struggle when you walk in and the majority of my collection is English. I want to make sure I have stuff for this population. And in this case, it's just a little bit different.
Right. Boy, I love it. Just so many ideas packed in here that are, any one of them you might look at and go, well, yeah, of course. But then you don't think about the of course part of it. And when you put them all together like this, it's just such a wonderful way to engage a group that might not otherwise get engaged.
Yeah. And that's really our duty, Steve. Our duty is to make sure that every student feels like they belong in the library. And sometimes it is about feeling like they belong and they can kick their friend's butt playing Uno or they can continue to build on our Lego wall. We have a Lego wall in our makerspace that they too can add now that they know how to connect them.
Yeah. I mean, Uno, of course, we can start talking about where do we see our foreign languages coming in or our non-English languages coming into different resources in the library, games and books and whatever. So
I always like to make sure that my teachers know that I'm not just here for research, which it's a librarian secret that research is my least favorite part of my job. But I'm not here just for English. I do so much more than check out. I love books. I love readers advisory, as we'll talk about in a second. But my job really is a teacher. And that's one of the reasons
Yes.
why I became a librarian, is to have a bigger impact instructionally.
Yes. When I first heard the term teacher librarian, I was like, yes, that's what it is. And it's a little bit of a shame that that's not the official title all over the place. Because that is, like, I tell the students, I have started telling the students that I am a teacher librarian. Teacher comes first. I am here to help you learn stuff and understand stuff. And
Exactly
I
right.
might do it a little different than some of your classroom teachers do it, but it's still the same. We're all here for the same reason. So yeah.
Well, and fun fact that is off topic, and if you'd like, you can edit this, but you don't have to. I'm national board certified in library. And
that is amazing.
it's
Just
crazy.
by itself.
And there's 4 components. If you don't know about national boards, contact me. I'm happy to give you lots of information about it. But I got a perfect score in the teaching and learning component, which
Ooh.
is so unbelievably rare, but it's complicated in a different podcast. But it really reminded me that I am here to teach first.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're teaching lessons through books, and sometimes you're teaching research, and sometimes you're teaching Makerspace and whatever it is. But, it really reinforced to me that I am first and foremost a teacher.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's one of the things I love about being in the school library is that, yes, I'm a teacher, but I get to teach so much more than just curriculum. Like you're teaching skills and knowledge and connections, and you're teaching curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, to me, that is the most valuable thing we can teach our students. And that's really literally what the library is about. It's about being curious and coming in and enjoying learning and finding things out. So,
right. And social skills. Make sure you
yes,
clean up after yourself. Can you please push in your chair? Because there's 100 of those. And
please.
there's me.
Yeah, please keep it down so the other people can take advantage of the space too. Like have your conversations.
I always say coexist.
Yes.
I was like, you need to coexist. If they're over there studying and you're too loud with Uno, you're entitled to play, but you're not entitled to interrupt them.
Yes, 100%. Oh boy, I feel like we could probably go on for the rest of the day about how awesome the school library is. Agreed. I'm going to take us though, because you brought up a great segue. So we're going to now take our 90-degree turn into our book break.
Book break. Squiddy!
Yay!
So the book break, you can share anything you like. And you had shared a couple of titles that you might want to make people aware of. Can be personal, professional, whatever. So please take the floor and share away.
Well, I'm going to start with Popcorn. And Popcorn is a new one. It is humor. For the life of me, I cannot tell you what the author's name is. I think he wrote Wink. Rob Harrell.
Yes, Rob Harrell. Yep.
Rob Harrell. I liked Wink too, but Popcorn is great because it's semi-autobiographical and it's humor, which is so hard to find, with a male main character, which is so hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
This poor kid. Do you remember the book Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day?
Yes.
Poor main character. My gosh, he just has a day that will not quit. And unfortunately for him, things are happening at home and things are happening at school. And it's just, poor kid. I just wanted to go back in bed with him because it could not get worse. And every period it gets worse. The thing that I really appreciated, Steve, was that it was a nice spotlight on mental health because main character has panic attacks. And you can see through the pages when he starts to get a panic attack because you start to get blotches come in. It is not a good audiobook because you miss a lot of the illustrations. I mean, I'm sure it's a good audiobook, but you miss a lot of the illustrations. And it leads up to him actually having a panic attack. And to see how he is responded to by the teacher who is so loving to him. And to have this very honest look at mental health and how this poor kid has encountered his whole day. You know, what would have happened if he went to the library and got to play Jenga? You know, it would have made his day so much better. But this poor kid just has such an awful day. And it made me really empathize with kids because when they come in the library, we don't know the stress that they have just left, right? We don't know if they have just failed a test. We don't know if things are not good at home. We don't know if they were just bullied in the hallway. And so it reinforced to me that we need to be really kind and really welcoming to every kid that walks in because you don't know what they have just been through.
Yeah.
But the second thing was I was really impressed on how much of this book was about mental health. because when you struggle with mental health, it impacts your entire day. So this kid has a recurrence of panic attacks, and what is happening in his personal life and his academic life leads to a panic attack. And so I think it really will raise awareness and understanding of these mental health issues and how negative experiences in a school can impact kid mental health. It's a really great read. It was quick, but it was a really great read. I really enjoyed it.
I just got a signed copy from Rob Harrell at ALA last month, and I loved Wink. I just adore that book. It's so funny, but also so powerful, and it's got just I think also it has a semi-autobiographical element to it, and it's just a great book. So I'm looking forward. I haven't had a chance yet to pick up Popcorn, but I'm looking forward to checking it out.
It's so good. The other one I want to share, I cannot keep on my shelves, and it's called Thieves Gambit, and it's by Kavion Lewis. It was her debut, and she is a librarian. So I always love to kind of support librarians in their writing. But I'm telling you, Steve, it is like Ocean's 11 meets Hunger Games. So it is the teenage kids of really famous con artists, and they are all recruited by this organization, and they are basically given these tasks, I suppose. And whoever wins, or, whatever it is, whoever can't complete the task is eliminated. I don't remember what where the prize was, but it's great because you meet along the way. Like, these are the kids that have grown up with con artist parents, for better or for worse. And now they are put into, you have to participate in this heist at this, fine items auction. You have to do, you have to steal X, Y, and Z. And it's definitely YA. I recommend it only for my 8th graders, but it's great. And the thing I love about it, Steve, is that the sequel, called, I believe it's Heist Royale, I think was even better than the first one, which is hard to say about a sequel.
Yeah, seriously. It kind of is I haven't read it yet, but the description a little bit reminds me of Ali Carter's Heist Society.
That's excellent. It's on the older side, but I love Heist Society. She also did I'll Tell You I Love You, But Then I'll Have to Kill You. It's an older series, but for readers who like Allie Carter and they've read both, she has a love interest in both. And so there's the classic, who is the main character better with.
Right.
So, I mean, they're definitely, if your kids are into heists, those are the books to get into.
Awesome. Well, I mean, Thieves Gambit I definitely need to get that on my short list, because that sounds great.
It's a nice read. You can listen to that one. There's no illustrations.
Okay, good to know.
But the other one I wanted to share, because they're so important in middle school, is it's a new nonfiction picture book. And I have an extensive collection of picture books in my library, and they are all directly aligned to standards that are taught in my school.
Love it.
But this one is called Life After Whale, and it's by Lynn something or other.
Lynn Brunell?
Yep, Lynn Brunell. Thank you. But it's illustrated by Jason Chin, I believe.
Yes.
And Jason Chin, I saw him speak, and he is just incredible. His illustrations are just lovely. He is a multiple award winner. I know he's won the Caldecott several times. And it's called Life After Whale. And I will tell you that I don't really have emotions when I read. I am not a crier. Sometimes I'll laugh out loud, but usually I don't have emotions evoked when I read. I'm just that kind of reader.
Okay.
I cried at this one, Steve, because of his illustrations. So the whole premise of the book is it's nonfiction, and it's what happened when a whale dies. And when a whale dies, eventually it floats it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Well, then it feeds the whole ecosystem, because as it degrades, it helps with food and whatever. And then eventually the bones become part of the sand, and, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, his illustrations are so realistic, you would swear that they're photographs. And it is 100% watercolor. You need to run, not walk, to your public library, because it is exceptional. And as you're reading, there are sidebars that give you the actual facts of what's happening. But I was just amazed. I love a lot of the things he's done, but that one really is just, I think, is the most powerful one.
That is so interesting, because I saw you had shared the title. And so I saw that, and in my head, I sort of knew the direction it was going to go in. But to hear you say that you had an emotional reaction to it, I'm a little bit like, that I would not have expected that. So that's interesting.
So, Steve, I have an extra copy of Life After Whale. Is there a way that maybe we could do some kind of contest or giveaway to listeners? Because I would be happy to send it to someone who is interested.
Absolutely. We can figure something out for that. Yeah. All right. We'll figure that out. And people who are listening, make sure you got your ears on at the end, because we'll give you some information on how we're going to make that work.
That sounds great. I would love to give it away because I thought that I wouldn't be able to order it. So I bought one myself. Well, then it turns out the one I ordered came in and I don't need two. So it is unprocessed. It is fresh from Barnes & Noble. And I would love to give it to someone who is listening.
Wow, that is outstandingly kind of you. Boy, I appreciate that. Well, we are going to figure out how we're going to make that work. But that's awesome. I mean, all three of these sound amazing. And I love that you're bringing picture books in too, because I am a huge fan of picture books at all grade levels, because even the good ones, I feel a good picture book has something for every age level, whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult. And so when we find those great ones, I think it's doing our students a disservice if we don't bring them and create some section for them.
And something to just kind of make you think, because it could be its own podcast, is have you considered the instructional possibilities for wordless picture books at the middle school level or the high school level?
I have sort of pondered, but I can't say that I've gone far with that thought, but that's absolutely a great area that should be explored, that could and should be explored.
And there are picture books that are not written for children. I have some picture books that are completely for older readers. So picture books should not be discounted. And while I allow students to check out anything, which includes our professional and our picture books, I do heavily cater them to my teachers, and I refine my picture books based on what my teachers need and how our standards change.
Love it. Well, now we've got 2 more lessons that we're going to be hearing from you on. So that's awesome.
Sounds great.
Man, so this all is so awesome and so amazing. So for the audience's gratification, we just paused for a second. We had a quick convo. We think we've got it worked out. We're going to do a form link in the show notes. If you are interested in getting your hands on a copy of Life After Whale, you definitely want to, as soon as possible, get into those show notes, get that form filled out, and that way we can get that off to somebody for them to enjoy.
It's so worth it, especially if your science curriculum covers decomposition, or they cover the food cycle or the life cycles or the food web, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's really about decomposition. And it would be an excellent addition to any library that serves their science teachers. I would not say it's a read aloud for sure. It's not a read aloud.
Okay.
Because you want to look at the pictures. Unless you have a document camera and your kids can actually absorb it.
Gotcha.
I would also even entertain it as an art teacher collaboration because it's watercolor and you can look at technique and shadow, and it's just stunning.
I mean, clearly the art was very affecting. So
it was very moving.
Yeah. Wow. So not only have you shared a lesson with us and book recommendations with us and ideas for 2 more episodes that we're going to do at some point, but you are also sharing a book. I mean, I think, Rachel, that makes you the most giving, most just generous of my guests so far. So I greatly, greatly thank you for taking the time to do all of this for us. Before we wrap up completely, I know people are going to want to touch base with you. So where are they going to go looking for you? How should they reach out to you? Where are they going to find you?
Well, believe it or not, since the decomposition of Twitter, I am only on Bluesky. I'm not on Bluesky very often, but I am on Bluesky. That is my professional spot. It's at rgrove10.
Great.
It'll be in the show notes. I could.
Yes. Yep.
But also, I'm a current blogger for the AASL Knowledge Quest website. And so I have a couple of posts every month, much like you, Steve.
Yes.
And that is a current gig for the next year or so. But other than that, my email is always open. I love doing Zooms and connecting with other librarians. So please feel free to reach out if you want more details. The other thing in the show notes is I did a blog post about this on my personal blog, which is now a little archived because I don't have time for it. But I did a blog post on this exact lesson. And so with pictures and everything else. So it will give you lots more details, or if you want to just see it in print, it's a good spot to refer to.
Yep. We're going to make sure that link is in the show notes so that people can follow it, because there are great ideas, suggestions in there. But I mean, you gave us such a thoughtful and thorough walkthrough of this. I really appreciate it. So again,
And if
Rachel,
you're going to be, I'm sorry, if you're going to be at AASL, I would love to meet you. Please come up and meet myself and my wife that will be there as well.
Awesome. I'm so excited that you guys are going to get to present because I remember seeing you guys present at AASL and you guys were awesome. So congratulations.
Thank you. We're really excited about it. We've never been to St. Louis, and our topics are yet to be revealed because AASL hasn't released its sessions yet. But let's just say I have done one before at another conference, and the other session is a brand new topic for me.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, Rachel, thank you again so much. It has been so wonderful to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thanks, Steve. It was so nice to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for the episode. They feature links to resources shared by our guest, as well as ways to keep in touch with them, and links to the book break titles. I'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, a comment, an idea, a question, or something you want to share, you can email drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. Know a librarian with something we could learn from? Let us know. Until next time, be good, be safe, and be well.